Girl wakes up from coma and tells doctors something shocking. Laura Van Wren was a 22-year-old student at Taylor University, a small Christian college known for its quiet routines and close-knit community. She was kind, responsible, and gentle in a way that made people trust her easily. Laura lived each day simply, without any idea that one ordinary school trip would pull her into a story that would shake the entire campus and change many lives forever. On April 26, 2006, 9 students and staff loaded into a van to drive to Fort Wayne. Their goal was simple: help organize a scholarship banquet for the next day. They were tired from a long day of work, but eager to do something meaningful. The van moved steadily along quiet roads. Laura Van Wren was 22 years old when she sat in the back, quietly excited to tell her parents about the day. At home, her parents, Don and Susie Van Wren, stayed awake, waiting for their daughter. They wanted to hear every detail of her day and had not gone to bed expecting her to arrive soon. The night was calm, the road stretching ahead, and for a moment, everything felt ordinary. But then, in a sudden, terrifying instant, that calm ended. A truck appeared on the wrong side of Interstate 69. The driver, Robert Spencer, 38 years old, had fallen asleep at the wheel. He was driving late at night, exhausted and unaware of how close he was to disaster. The truck collided with the van with brutal force. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and screams filled the night. The van flipped and skidded across the road, leaving the passengers trapped, bleeding, and terrified. 4 of the 9 people died instantly. The others were injured, some unconscious, some pinned by the wreckage. Bystanders rushed to the scene, calling emergency services and trying to free the survivors. Robert Spencer was arrested at the scene. He later pleaded guilty to multiple counts of reckless homicide and received a 5-year prison sentence. He admitted he would carry the guilt for the rest of his life. His exhaustion and carelessness had caused a tragedy that changed multiple families forever. At the hospital, Laura's parents faced their worst fears. Laura was unconscious, bleeding internally, and suffering severe head injuries. Doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize her. Don and Susie stayed at her side, unable to leave, watching for even the smallest sign of life. Slowly, her eyes opened, but she could not speak or move. In the following weeks, strange things began. Laura whispered words that made no sense, often repeating, "false parents." Her teeth looked different. A navel piercing she had always had was gone. Small details about her personality seemed unfamiliar. She sometimes stared at her parents as though they were strangers. Despite the confusion, the fact that she was alive gave them hope. Weeks later, she was able to write her name. But what happened next left everyone in utter shock. The name she wrote wasn't Laura, it was Whitney. It turned out the girl they had been caring for wasn't Laura Van Wren. She was Whitney Serrick, another teenager in the van, presumed dead. Both girls had similar appearances, golden hair, similar build. And the mix-up occurred because Whitney's ID had been found near the wrecked van. The mix-up itself was not the result of a single mistake, but a chain of small, understandable errors happening in the chaos of a major crash. At the scene, both girls had suffered severe head injuries and swelling that changed their appearance. Their hair color and build were almost identical, and both were covered in dirt, blood, and debris. Emergency responders worked in darkness, with lights flashing and multiple victims needing immediate attention. Whitney's ID card was found near Laura's body, most likely thrown by the force of the collision. Because survivors were transported quickly, there was no time for detailed identification. Hospital staff relied on the information they were given by first responders, who believed the injured girl was Laura. Bandages covered most of her face soon after she arrived, making recognition even harder. Meanwhile, families were grieving, hospitals were overwhelmed, and no one imagined such a mix-up could happen. The mistake was tragic, but it was also rooted in the confusion of a violent crash, the pressure of saving lives, and the heartbreaking reality that 2 young women looked far more alike than anyone realized in the aftermath of trauma. The Wrens had unknowingly been caring for a stranger, while Whitney's real parents, Newell and Colleen, mourned her death. They had even held a funeral for her. When Whitney's parents arrived at the hospital, the emotional collision was overwhelming. Relief, disbelief, and grief merged into a single, heavy weight. Two families were now tied together by tragedy, loss, and confusion. Whitney, fragile and confused, struggled to understand the chaos that had reshaped her life. Her recovery was slow. Brain injuries had affected her speech and movement. She occasionally whispered, "false parents," trying to reconcile memory with reality. Over time, she gained strength, learned to walk again, and gradually spoke, though she would never be the same as before the accident. Returning to school was difficult. Friends seemed familiar yet distant. Her previous identity, the social, confident girl she had been, was gone. She had to rebuild her life, living between two families, learning that survival brought both gifts and burdens. She carried scars, visible and invisible, and a deep understanding of life's fragility. Years later, Whitney lives a quieter, thoughtful life. She has a family of her own, and every day is approached with awareness of how easily life can change. Her story is not a fairy tale ending. It is realistic, shaped by trauma, confusion, and slow healing. 5 people lost their lives during the tragedy who should not be forgotten: Monica Felver, Brad Larson, Betsy Smith, Laurel Erb, and Laura Van Ryn. As for Whitney, she survived, but survival itself brought new challenges, new perspectives, and an appreciation for what it truly means to keep living.